All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Podcast Live, the hiring, recruiting, talent, DEIB, whatever you want to call it, the world that we live in roundtable. Let's get to it. Let's welcome my guests. We have Clark, we have Rocki, and we have Reice. Welcome to the podcast. Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's going on?
What is up?
What's up?
Hello. It is noontime here on the East Coast here in New York. We're going to go around the horn and do some introductions. Thank you to my West Coast fam. I know it's early. Hopefully you have your coffee or I guess, what do they do on the West Coast? Green juice, whatever acai bowl, whatever you're into there. So we're going to go around the horn and do a quick round of introductions. And we always start ladies first. Rocki, Howard, welcome back. Podcast alumni, welcome back to the show.
We'll take it. What's up, Paz? It's been way too long. My name is Rocki Howard, and I am the founder and chief diversiologist at diversiology.io. So good to be here today.
Chief diversiologist. Is this the first use of that title? Because I love it. It works.
It is. We chose the name and the word for meaning. And look, I'm a business person. We chose it for brand. So yeah, we're coming out the gate and we're charting our own course.
I love it. And welcome everybody listening. And I'm going to do a quick housekeeping in a moment here. Let's go to Reice. Reice, what's happening, man?
Hey, everyone. So it's nice to meet everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So my name is Reice Keck. I'm the founder at Mindhire. We're a search firm for AI and machine learning. I've been in recruiting for quite a while. Started an agency back in 2016, founded my first firm back in 2019, and then founded Mindhire earlier this year. So happy to be here.
Awesome. And last but not least, the man on the top right quadrant on the screen on our Hollywood squares, Clark. What's happening, man?
How you doing, man? I am Clark Willcox. I'm the founder of Digital Recruiter. We're a sales and marketing, training, and consultancy for agency recruiters, and also the founder of Digital Recruiter Talent Group, which is just our search firm.
Awesome. So we have a diverse panel here, diverse of experience, diversity of mindset, diversity of point of views, and that's really what it's all about. I like to bring different folks together, folks who may know each other, may not. And the same thing with our audience. Well, welcome everybody. And this is supposed to be an interactive session here. We are going to talk about a couple of hot topics, but as we're going through these hot topics, I'm watching you in the comments. Feel free, please answer, ask any questions, anything you want. Look, I even have where's my little banner? There it is. Look at that. There we go. Ask any questions in the comments. We have these things. I even have a live podcast. We have all these things. I even have a sup with that if we have something weird going on here, but we will save those for later. Let's start off with my favorite topic du jour right now. Who out there on the panel in the audience has seen the video viral of the lady who live streamed her firing on TikTok from a company called Cloudflare? Have you guys seen that?
I have.
I saw enough of it and I turned it off. I can't stand watching all those things all the way through.
It was hard to watch. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I have literally been under a rock. We were running a conference, so I can't wait to hear about this.
All right, so Clark, why don't you tell everybody what this was, and I'll add some. I'll keep it straight here.
So the way I understand it, having watched about 45 seconds of it, was an employee with a Cloudflare, right? Like
right.
3-4 months into the role, was getting one of those like I got an invite from HR and a leader she probably never met. And I think knew what was coming, so she decided to live stream or record herself on the call, and it was her getting fired. And I think she had a decent amount of pushback and choice words for the managers and kind of how they handled it.
Yeah,
and that's as far as I got. I think Reice got probably watch more.
Yeah, and just a level set here, and Reice, I want to get your let's level set here. So they're a San Francisco-based company at Cloudflare. We have our eyes set on an ambitious goal to help build a better internet. Wow, that's pretty broad statement there. Better internet. I can think of 800 things to build a better internet. They say on LinkedIn here from 1 to 5,000 employees, so it's an enterprise level organization. I think that's important to set the stage for this conversation. It's not a 50-person company where like, oh my God, you guys remember Office Space, right? When they bring in the Bobs, right, to fire people, they're bringing the consultants to fire people. This is kind of similar. Reice, let's elaborate to the story here from your take.
Yeah. So I did watch the whole thing, and so from memory, so Cloudflare is, yes, they are certainly a larger company. They are basically, without getting too technical, they're infrastructure for the internet, more or less. So this is, and they're fairly dominant in what they do. I think from memory, they have about 78% market share in their space.
That's massive.
So yeah, so they're not a small scrappy startup. They're the big dog in what they do. And the person in question was a mid-market account executive. So mid-market meaning they sell into medium-sized organizations. And I don't think, Clark, I don't think she was even 3 months into her job. I think she was 30 days in.
It was early.
Yeah, and when you're a mid-market AE, your sales cycles are not 30 days. They're not, they're, I mean, it depends.
You got to ramp up. You got to ramp up.
It's about a 6 months average close time, I would ballpark for a mid-market AE. So she's nowhere near, having been in a place where it's like you haven't hit your sales numbers because no one has closed any deals 30 days in at that level. And obviously you have, your pipeline and like what sort of activity are you doing, et cetera, and other metrics that you're judged on besides just closing deals. But this was also just after the holidays, and no one had told her that anything was wrong. And moreover, the person who fired her was an HR rep. It was not her manager, and her manager didn't actually even know that she was being fired.
That's crazy talk.
Yeah. And the HR rep didn't really have any answers on why she was being fired. I don't think that she just knew she was there to fire someone. The AE pushed back and was saying, what justification do you have? And the HR rep didn't even know. So I think that really is sort of the outrage on this. We're firing you. I don't know who you are. I don't know why, but you're out.
It was cold. And this is a trend that we are seeing, and it happens a lot with these large enterprise level companies. And the worst part is, I mean, let's talk human to human here. I mean, I've seen the horror stories and heard the horror stories of folks that have been at, like, even Google has done this, right? And people have been there for 15, 16, 17 years. And all of a sudden I've seen it done via email. Imagine dedicating the last, decade to a company, and this is how they do dirty. But there's a few things I want to unpack here. And the first step is managing expectations, right? And managing the expectations of the employees. Rocki, what are some of those best practices? And you're hearing this story, through us, and I'll definitely link up the video so you could check it out afterwards. But what are these companies doing wrong? I mean, listen, is it just a straight up mass firing and she's like trying to like save her ass and be like, I just started, I was doing good, and like, hey, listen, first in, like last in, first out kind of thing? I mean, how can we do better?
Yeah, look, you all, I literally have a shirt on today that says human and kind. So I believe in being human and kind to people, but I got to rep a little bit for, my people, right?
Yeah.
I'm an HR person. I understand.
There's multiple sides to this, right? We got to keep it real. We're going to keep it real right here.
Exactly. You do have to keep it real. And I think the challenge is when you're getting fired, it's your life. And we know that. We understand that. There's actually no good way to do this. I think what you want to do is treat people with dignity and respect. The things that I hear that are wrong in this particular situation is, and this is a problem, we think it's kind not to give people constructive feedback, and then they're failing and they don't know that they're failing. And then we fire them because they're failing, but we haven't given them the strong feedback, right? And so one lesson, every manager, we all own this. Give people the real feedback. You owe it to your people to give them the real feedback. I think when you're talking about massive layoffs, which we've seen over the last year, that's a really tough situation where, and look, I've been in this situation where we're going to lay off X number of people. You don't want everybody sitting around biting their nails all day going, am I next? Am I next?
Imagine that. You're just waiting by your computer all day, like refresh.
Right.
Am I fired?
Right. Is it me? Is it me? Yet and still there's one or two people who have to be on that call. That was another place where I feel like they failed. The manager should have been there, right?
I agree.
But if you're an HR person and you're one of a couple and you've got to, let's just make up a number, exit 10 people that day, I can't be in 10 places at once. And so do I want everyone in the org biting their nails until I get through 10 conversations with dignity and respect? Or do I want to say to the impacted people, I'm so sorry, you are impacted today. Here's a time for us to have a conversation and talk through it. You're caught on either side of it, like when you're really trying to do the right thing. I don't think anyone should get fired by email. And look, the truth is, a lot of times when you're on the other side of it, you're not going to go, how many people do you ever know that goes, yeah, I knew I was getting fired. I knew I was doing a crap
the only people that know they're getting fired, let's be very clear, because I've been fired, is for performance issues. If you're not performing in your job, it's pretty, you should have some self-awareness that, you know, things are not going right. And most likely you've had reviews, you've been on a PIP or something, you know you're going to get fired. Unless it's something egregious, right? You know why you're getting fired, and it shouldn't be blindsided. Also, we know that there's rumors within organizations. I think now let's flip it around. Let's right, Rocki, thank you for providing that perspective, because what folks have to understand the size of these enterprises, and when they're laying people off, it's a shitty part of business. It's a reality now, and it's a numbers game. And we saw it too, right? I think I forgot what company was just in the news too. They fired 3% of the people. Stock price went up 5%. Right? It's all a numbers game, right? To show the P&L and how it affects the stock price, and it's just corporate awful capitalism America, and it sucks. But things have to get done. It's an unfortunate part of business. But let's talk about her perspective too. Reice, as a candidate, is she doing herself a disservice? Like, did she do wrong? Did she violate NDAs? Did she violate her employment at will, like by defaming the company? Like, she may not be entitled to her severance. There's a lot of legal ramifications here. And we're not lawyers. Let's caveat this.
Yeah.
Opinion.
I think the obvious caveat is yes, we're not lawyers. I can't speak to if she violated any sort of NDA or employment agreement, because obviously I haven't seen that. I don't think there could be really, and again, this is my completely non-lawyer opinion. She didn't actually state anything, you know, after the fact and say Cloudflare did this, Cloudflare did that. She just simply recorded an interaction that she was having that may not, you know, that obviously was not meant to be public. But she just more or less put that out onto the internet. And I think she made a LinkedIn post about it. But, you know, you can't slander, or you can't sue someone or, you know, withhold severance or what have you for exposing your own bad behavior.
Very true.
So that's my difference.
Would you, as a recruiter, how would you, if you're recruiting, how would you judge her? Or how would maybe one of your clients judge her? Be like, are you putting yourself like, hey man, I don't know if I want to hire this lady. Like, God forbid something happens with us and she puts us on blast. Right? Is she doing herself a disservice, like in the future for her?
I think so, frankly. You know, having been I'm not just a recruiter, you know, I've also been a business owner. I've had an org of probably 20, 25 people under me. So as from a recruiter's perspective, I would be pretty hesitant to put someone that is more or less a liability in front of one of my clients.
Very true.
And as a business owner, I would be hesitant to hire someone like that, not because I'm going to do them wrong in the way that she was done wrong. But it's very obvious that, and look, no business is perfect. My business isn't perfect. Cloudflare isn't perfect. Nobody's is. And so if I know that someone is very likely and has a history of broadcasting things like that onto the internet, it's a flag. It's a big red flag.
Yeah.
And no one ever wants to tell the person that. Like, that's the truth. We don't
the whole world told her
that. But like, here's the truth. Like, look, this is the world of social media. I counsel my leaders all the time to always be expecting that someone is recording your calls. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
My question is this a matter of judgment and competency? So if I'm hiring someone who I expect to have good judgment and represent my company appropriately and know what's appropriate interaction for my clients.
Spot on.
Why I think someone who would literally live stream their termination, do I think that showed the appropriate business judgment that I would want in a mid-market AE? And that's the question.
Judgment.
Yeah. And to clarify, I don't think she actually did anything wrong in terms of what she said to the people. I probably would have said something very.
She also cut them off right at the beginning. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off by doing that, but yeah. She literally cut right on the call. She knew it was coming. I mean, Nikki said this here too, and I saw this. She knew it was coming. You know, the meeting's on your calendar, and she didn't. She's like, well, they start the call off. I'm this person. I'm that person. She goes, no, I just had 60 days here. I didn't even get a chance. I didn't get to do anything. And like, she knew it was coming. She didn't even listen to them first. Like, she kind of just cut their legs off first.
I'm trying to remember. I think I do remember that. Yeah, I mean, in terms, I guess probably to backtrack, I don't think there's anything wrong in terms of pushing back on under the circumstances, because you're right. There at the end of the day, she wasn't given a real reason. The internal communication, how it was handled, was obviously very poor, and there's nothing wrong with voicing displeasure when things are being handled poorly. It's the broadcasting it for millions of people to see that I think is the like Rocki said, the lack of business sense.
Clark, what's your take?
I agree. Why do that to yourself? I mean, just because you're almost, you fight fire with fire in a sense, whatever you think of it. Right?
When you're being fired.
When you're being fired, whatever you think of it. And I think Rocki nailed it with the judgment. Like, how do you want to be perceived in a sense, right? I think people get hooked to some of the dopamine, or this is going to go viral. It's going to be a gotcha for them.
Yeah.
What does it say about you? Right. And it's like, this is, she's what, in her 20s? She's got a whole career ahead of her. I mean, not that.
Do you want to be branded as that lady who did that? Like, right. We see the application just came in from whatever her name is. Oh shit, guys, take a look who just applied. What do we do?
I think my take is people kind of underestimate, with some of the short-term stuff with social media and the fast news cycle, the stuff has a long-term impact, and people are paying attention. I always tell people this with like posting content and everything. Not everyone might like or comment. A lot of people are paying attention though.
Lurkers are real.
And people really underestimate how much people pay attention, and that can you decide if that goes in your favor or against you. And you have way more control over that than you realize.
Yeah, Nikki, I didn't see Nikki Russell. Thank you so much for all your insight here. I did not see the response yet. Reice, did you see the response? Let me see.
I did. I
don't. What it was.
I obviously don't remember it verbatim, but it was something. And Nikki, feel free to update me if I get anything wrong here. But he basically more or less said, yes, this was handled very poorly. We hire 1,500 salespeople every some time period. Maybe it was every year, or overall, and we terminate about 40 of them. And it just
it's gonna be layoffs.
It just sort of is what it is. Yeah.
Here it is for everybody. You can check it out here. Yeah, this is a tough one. Let's riff on this for a little bit here. Candidate, your reputation in the marketplace, right, and your presence on social media. Rocki, what are some of those good, bad, and ugly things that you've seen out there and had? And let's be real with people. We see what you're posting on social media. I'm not stalking people's Instagrams and Facebook's personal. But on LinkedIn, I'm a recruiter. I will look at every profile on LinkedIn, and if you're active on LinkedIn, I'm gonna scroll a little bit. And what I'm looking for is thought leadership, engagement, showing that you have you're interested in the industry that you're working in. It's all positive. I won't put it and knock it against you if you're a candidate. You don't have to be active on LinkedIn. It's a plus, nice to have. But if you're sitting on LinkedIn and you're trolling away, and God forbid anything racial, politically defaming, any of that stuff, like that's a flag, and you got to be mindful in this day and age. Everything lives on the internet.
For sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Reice. I see Rocki. My friend. Yep. Hey, Sarah George. I see you out there. And Sarah just said it's a reminder to all that what you post reflects your personal brand, right?
Amen.
And how do you want to show up professionally? And that's what I think people forget. People think, oh, I'm on my personal Instagram, and so no one's going to see XYZ PDQ or this comment I made out of anger. Look, you guys, please remember, and it's what I would say to the person who posted the TikTok, when blood pressure is up, rational thought is down. And then you post something that you can't take back. And no one is going to tell you that's the reason I didn't hire you for a job. Or think about, let's go some places, right? I've been in situations where, someone's smoking some weed on their Instagram. Look, not my thing to judge.
Well,
right?
If it's legal in your state, then it's not bad.
That's a whole different, like we could have a whole episode on
But there's perception. There's perception.
But it's the perception. And so, like, if I'm hiring for a company, for example, I worked for the Mom Project. Can I have somebody who's smoking weed? Like, does that align with my brand? Does that align with how we want to show up? So I think you've got to think about that. Like, I'm very clear on how I show up, and I'm clear that some people aren't going to want to hire me because of who I am and what I say and how I show up. But
there's a balance there.
That's a choice. And I think the problem is people don't realize and they don't think about it when they're posting that this has long-term consequences. And so how does it reflect my brand? Because my personal brand is what someone is hiring. There can't be a separation.
There's no separation anymore. It's just your brand. Let's drop the personal. What you're doing online is just your reputation. It's your presence, right? Like this whole personal branding. I get it. It's a catchy name for it, but at the end of the day, it's still your reputation. It's what people are saying behind your back when you're not looking. Yeah. Clark, anything else to add before we kind of shift to
part of the brand? And I had to make this when I started posting, putting myself out there, is I had to understand, because I think Rocki just nailed it in terms of how to approach and how to think about those things, is who do I want to bring in? Who do I want in my tribe? And do I not want in my tribe? And that's just real, because I can't cater to everyone. I'm just one person. But like, I had to understand what my voice is going to be, what I was going to say, talk about, and what I was okay with that meaning and that okay not meaning, right? And really put in that thought, that critical thinking to, and I don't do anything polarizing, right? But for example, I don't like the snark and all that when people have in the comment section, all that. So like, I go after that like a pit bull if I see that on my feed or people on my team or whatever else, because like, I don't want any of that snark, that like sarcasm, that, you know,
I don't know how we're connected. I don't know how we're connected, man. If you don't like my snark,
I make a Long Island exception because it's in your DNA.
I mean, so a leopard can't change its spots, man. I'm sorry.
But you know what I mean. They're like, oh, I've never gone to an interview wrong, or I submit 100% perfect candidates. Like that type of approach, and like the know-it-all approach, right? That we see on there. And I was just like, that's not this. This is I want to create a foster a learning environment where we're testing things, we're trying to get better, we're trying to do things the right way. That's part of the brand. And like, you just have to identify what that is for you, and stick to it. And that doesn't mean being polarizing at all. Like, it's just knowing that kind of in that sense, and you stick to your guns, and people respect that.
Also, I just noticed that the three gentlemen here have beards. So in the comments here, let's vote up or down. Who's rocking the no, I'm kidding on that one. All right, let's switch up a little bit. That was a fantastic conversation with so much insights. No, you're good, Rocki. You're good. You're good down there. I want to do a quick kind of state of the union of what's happening out there in the U.S. hiring market. 2023 for almost all sectors was brutal. The economy, cheap money was not cheap anymore. Interest rates through the ceiling. We saw a ton of binge hiring happen early in the pandemic. And then guess what? Money is not cheap anymore. Layoffs, massive layoffs. And then what I like to call the great recalibration. A lot of folks who were hired at very high salaries are now out on the marketplace, and they're going back out there. I call it the great recalibration. And guess what? Let's say you got hired at a tech role at $200,000 in 2021 when there was, high demand, low supply, and you were able to negotiate that. And guess what? The recalibration, that role is really a $150,000 role. So you as a candidate who's out of work needs to make a choice. Am I going to wait around and really try to find that 200K role, or really understand the current market conditions? And that's a reality, and it's tough. And we're in an election year. There's still a ton of uncertainty. I'm starting to see some small indicators that we normally see at the beginning of the year with hiring plans, budgets set. But there's still a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of sitting on your hands right now. And I want to get a take of what you're seeing from your perspective. Let's start with Reice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say probably the caveat from my view is that I very much live in venture-backed startup land, which tends to make a lot of noise and get a lot of attention, but it's also like 2% of the overall economic hiring economy. So what I have been seeing is, yes, you're absolutely right. There was a ton of hiring that was done in 2021. It was overhiring. It was really hiring with no plans. Just, hey, let's hire because we can and figure out somewhere where to put them. The packages were fairly ridiculous. And, even, small anecdotal data points. I had someone on my team who absolutely brilliant recruiter, but was very new at the job, had been in sales previously, but had about 6 months of recruiting experience, and took an internal role at one of our clients at $160K a year with 6 months of recruiting experience.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. We had one of our consultants who
sign me up.
Right. We had one of our consultants who had been at a client for probably in the neighborhood of 2 years that we were paying in the neighborhood of 150 to 160K. They made her a permanent offer, but at 125, because that's just what the market was reflecting now. So I am seeing that there is, definitely some recalibration live, and I think that candidates now are starting to expect that a little bit. I've had lots of conversations with candidates because part of what I'm doing right now with Mindhire is I'm leading interim talent at an AI startup that needs to hire for. So I'm talking to a lot of people across the across the board, and what I'm hearing pretty consistently is I was making this, but I'm not expecting that now. I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
So it's not, is that a great, I guess what can you call it, place from a morale perspective to be in? Probably not. But I think
it's
it's also just meeting the economic reality of, what the world has become. I do think there is some shifting. Companies start to seem, they're starting to now be that mood of, oh, things are probably going to pick up again in the next 6 months, sort of like what I was hearing back in 2021, 2020, early 2022, and everyone's like, we all know a recession is coming, it's just not here yet.
Didn't really happen.
From a macro perspective, no, startups got absolutely annihilated in terms of funding and layoffs and everything else. So there now is starting to sort of be some collective idea that there is relief coming and there's growth coming again. And, TBD on if that actually happens. I think the Fed has announced that there's going to be a couple of rate cuts, which should take the boot off the proverbial neck a little bit. But we're not going back to those high growth, zero interest environments and crazy hiring anytime soon. I think it's going to continue to be deliberate and careful hiring.
Rocki, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I'm going to take this from my world,
and that's what I want to hear. I want to perspectives.
Yeah, let's talk about the diversity world. So back in 2020, when the world literally shifted between the murder of George Floyd and the pandemic, we saw this extreme kind of bump up with diversity roles. There were diversity roles, quite frankly, chief diversity officer roles were a dime a dozen. I took one. I'm not, I'm not hating on it. But the truth is, even back then, we were saying this is not sustainable. And unfortunately, what we saw was not only that those roles are eroding at the same pace for which they were added back in 2021. But unfortunately, what's also happened that I think is a thing that we're all facing. So, Reice, I'm going to take a different spin on what you were saying. We were doing all this hiring. We didn't have a plan. We figured we'd work it out. Well, in the diversity space, I personally believe that actually did damage. We were hiring anyone who looked diverse, would take a diverse role. Diversity, those of us who do it for a living have done it long term. It is a discipline. You have to have a set of competencies to be able to do it. And in that same place, I'm also going to say something that's probably not going to make me really popular. We also hired candidates in the attempt of making our workplaces more diverse. However, we didn't always make sure that we hired the most qualified candidate.
And thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, because I've seen a lot of that too. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but I've seen it too, where I ask my clients who say, hey, listen, let's make sure we ensure diversity. And I say, are we hiring do you want me to hire the best candidate? And I say, or would you rather let's ensure that our process is DEI and B inclusive compliant, that we're sourcing and giving everyone equal opportunity?
Well, look, people, it doesn't have to be oxymoronic. You can hire diverse talent and they can still be qualified, and we need to stop. Here's the thing, that's not some secret sauce. You can actually do that. But in a lot of cases, in our rush to show that we were making progress, we didn't do that. And so now we've taken a step back because we've got diversity experts who weren't actually experts, who couldn't deliver, who weren't given the resources to deliver what they were supposed to deliver in the first place. You've got people who were hired for roles. And this is what I mean when we talk about the difference between intentions and impact. Our intentions may have been good. The impact we're all facing right now.
That's real talk right there.
Yeah.
That's real talk. Clark, what say you?
My perspective, my world, agency recruiting, smaller agencies, right? You have to perform. You have to get results. That's all that matters, right? You got to be able to do it in the right way, right? We can't just, for agency recruiters, you can't go chase job orders, chase clients, and just kind of send people away. You have to do it the right way. It takes a lot of work on the front end. I think that's what Rocki's getting at, putting the strategy in place, being intentional about everything that you're doing. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing in the market, the people that are really taking a step back and critically thinking through their career, their branding, their approach, how do I kind of set myself apart versus how do I just kind of fit in? There's a huge opportunity for people that are showing up, working hard, working smart, and kind of really adding a ton of value to the organization. There's a dearth of that just attitude and that mindset. And maybe you weren't trained up on it or whatever the reason is, it doesn't really matter. But that's the opportunity is skills or whatever, right? If there's the personality tangible, the ethic, the desire, the work ethic, the desire, the just the coachability piece, there is
huge.
such an opportunity to make an impact in whatever you want to do or trying different things. There's a real attitude shift between kind of being passive and proactive about your career, about your work, the impact, and just owning whatever role you're in at that moment, right? I'm trying to, I could be all these things. That's great, but do what you're kind of assigned to do today and do it as best as you can. That's where I see the opportunity shifting, whether it's recession, things are booming, not booming, whatever else. That's always in demand. And in the noise and the information era we're at, where stuff is just thrown at us, we don't know what's real. People want truth, they want authenticity, and they want hard work. And that is how you can own and dominate right now.
Yes, nailed it. So let's shift it up a little bit and let's get into the job seeker perspective right now. There are a lot of people out of work. There are a lot of people out of work, and it pains me as a recruiter. And I'm in the weeds, in the trenches recruiter every single day recruiting. I get hit up, I'm going to say on average, anywhere from 5 to 10 messages a day of folks who are looking for work. And all they're doing is seeing recruiter in my profile, and they're reaching out. And this is a tough one for me because there's a part of me that my time is limited. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, minus sleep, minus family, minus all the day-to-day stuff that we have to do. And I only have a little bit of period of time during the day where I could really help someone who's not driving revenue generating activity for me. So I try to balance it out. Let's be real here, people. I'm a recruiter. I got to make money. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a solo business owner. I got to freaking put food on the table. But I want to try to help everybody. And I get a lot of messages from folks, hey, looking for a job. And I got one today, someone looking for an accounting role. And I feel for this person because that's a complete opposite of what I recruit for. But if you take that one moment to look at my profile, it's all there. I literally listed in my headline and in my about section. And I'm empathetic because I want to help. But if you can't help yourself first and take that one moment just to see if it's my specialty, that's tough. Now, there's a balance there of if you're hey, I know you are a marketing recruiter, but you happen to know any accounting recruiters, that's a different approach. But I want to see you kind of make that effort. Reice, what's your take? How can we best help job seekers right now as recruiters? What are you feeling about? How do you like to be messaged, cold message from candidates?
Yeah, I mean, I like what you were saying, just doing the most basic of research.
It's right there. It's right there.
If you're semi-competent, you have clearly listed what you recruit for on your profile. So just look. I would say, and this is for all job seekers. I've done plenty of internal recruiting work, but I very much at heart am an agency person. And I think something that's important for candidates to realize in general when it comes to reaching out to agency recruiters specifically is that not only are we very niche, but we, by the virtue of what we do and the fees that we charge, can only really represent a very small portion of the market. You have to be a very strong candidate with a hard to find skill set in order for us to be able to represent you. It's not being mean, but realistically, I mean, we charge 20, 25, 30% of someone's salary.
That's why they're hiring us.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you're a fresh grad out of college, you haven't really developed a skill set yet in which we can help you. If you've historically, bounced around a lot of jobs and you haven't done anything particularly noteworthy, and unfortunately, it's not to say you can't get a job. You certainly can, but it's very unlikely that one of our clients will pay us a 5-figure sum in order to bring you on board. So
that's not what they're paying us for.
Yeah, so I think that's just something to be mindful of, specifically for agency recruiters. Now, if you're going to reach out to internal recruiters or even hiring managers at a company, I do have some helpful tips on that. Funnily enough, I ended up scrapping it for a few various reasons, but I actually was putting together a course on how to help job seekers using agency business development techniques.
That's interesting. I see Clark's wheel spinning up there.
Yeah, I got stuff on this one, but no, this is good.
Yeah,
let's get into it. Let's get into it. Like, talk to us about some of those techniques and tips.
Yeah,
we're gonna park why you didn't do that for offline, but yeah.
So one thing, for example, if you want to, and if you are looking for a job actively and you're not on a super tight budget, I would strongly recommend getting LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Apollo. LinkedIn Sales Navigator. If you're job searching, you probably already have premium LinkedIn, which is I think $60 a month. Sales Navigator is $100, so it's really not that substantial of a difference.
It shows you who the hiring manager is too when you're looking at jobs.
Right, and Apollo is used for, if anybody's not familiar, for finding corporate email addresses. So there's probably 8 or 9 different ways you can skin it, but one thing I would do is I would look at companies in the industry in which I have worked, in which I have unique experience and can bring a unique skill set. Go on LinkedIn or Apollo, filter to the industry in which you specialize, and build a list of hiring managers that could potentially hire you, and create it more or less a campaign saying, hey, here's who I am. This is my skill set. Oftentimes even if they don't have a job posted, there may be, if you are really skilled and, are a good fit for a potential company, there's the opportunity for an opportunistic hire.
And
if
pipelining,
you are, and pipelining. Yeah. If a role is posted, I don't think this is going to rock anybody's world, but, very few people do it. Find who the hiring manager is using Sales Navigator, and the hiring manager, not just the recruiter. Reach out to both ideally, but use Apollo to find their email address and send them a personalized email saying that, hey, I applied. I'm working on a role right now with Codometrics where I'm leading talent, and I'm working on a data engineer role. I got 500 applications within 3 days.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't even know if I'm going to be able to look. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to look at all of them, but not a single person has messaged me about.
Right, so it's about standing out, right? Like, how do you take that one extra step? And I say this to job seekers all the time. Like, don't assume that people aren't doing this. Like, how do you stand out? Whether it be on content, whether it be on outreach, whether it be on just organic content creation out there, and the same thing for agency recruiters. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry, just agreeing.
No, you're good. But yeah, it truly does not take much to stand out from an application perspective. Other things job seekers can do, if you, let's say you're an engineer, or even if you just have, experience with some unique software, you can search that software on job boards and see who's using that software that you're hiring for. You can also look at, so if you go on Sales Navigator, you can find who has started a new role in the last 90 days.
Yes.
So for that, what I would do is 2 different things. The first is I would look at and put in your, you can either do like a function and level, or you can just do a title for hiring managers that could potentially hire you that have started a new role in the last 90 days. Usually when you go in for the first 90 days at a company as a leader, you're assessing your team, you're assessing where the gaps are, and you're figuring, okay, who do I need to hire? So oftentimes those roles may not be posted yet, but the leader will know, oh, I need someone to beef up my X process. So that's one.
This is smart, people. Anyone who's watching now, this is a master class. Tactics. I'm going to replay this. I'm going to clip this up. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell all of it. I'm going to do the course that he's not doing. I'm just going to literally record all of his stuff, chop it up.
This was in the course. This was in the course, the unreleased course. And I got one more. So
put in the work, right? Like, put in the work. Last tip.
Yeah. On that same 90-day filter, instead of doing a hiring manager one, put one for your own title or similar titles. So you can then see who are your peers that have started a new role in the last 90 days. Then look at where they just came from. If they were unemployed before and just got a job, this does not apply. But if you see on their LinkedIn that they just left their last job, say a month ago or the same month, it's very unlikely that they it's basically they quit and went to a new role. You now can look at their last company
Probably
where
an
they
open
came
role.
from. As you know, there's now an opening there.
Smart.
And then
We
find
do the
who
same thing as
hiring manager
recruiters.
That's,
right?
that's
Do the
exactly
same
it. It's recruitment business development for job seekers. So
yeah, it's how do you reverse engineer the process and stand out?
so feel free to steal.
Rocki, interesting perspective because you're not a recruiter, but you see this. How from your perspective, how could a candidate really stand out in today's market in the job search?
Yeah, so I will tell you, I spent, 20 plus years of my career as a recruiter. So it never goes away. Once a recruiter, you're always a recruiter. But what I will tell you is right now, I am simply amazed. We're talking about the fact that we receive thousands of applications for one job and thousands of hundreds of reach outs and all of that. What I am shocked and amazed by is the number of people who show up to interviews and they haven't done the work to be prepared.
Ooh, we're
So
gonna
you
get into
got
that.
your
Yeah.
shot and you're not shooting your shot. Look, I grew up, I've got it disclosed. I'm Gen X. I turned 55 last Friday. I grew up in the time of the library. Yeah, woo-woo, right? There was no, laptop. There was no, like it
I learned
was,
to type on a typewriter.
yeah, I did.
I had a beeper.
Yeah, I had and that was new tech.
I know what a landline phone is, right? I had to
That's
stretch
right.
that thing from the kitchen to the bedroom if I wanted to have a private conversation. Sorry,
Right. When we got the fax machine, we
Yeah,
thought
I'm
it was
old.
sexy, right? Like we're
Right.
old school. But the thing that baffles me from that is now it takes 5 minutes to do a LinkedIn search. It takes 10 minutes to do a company search.
Right.
And so anytime I'm interviewing, I ask a couple of questions, and you may not realize that if you don't answer these questions, I'm done with you, right?
Done.
And so it's the thing like, why do you want to come work for this company? And I'm looking for some really basic things that you've done. If you can't
Show
tell
some
me
research,
why you want
curiosity.
to come work for the company and include some basic information about the company, yeah, you haven't done your work. When
Put in
I
the
ask
time.
you this, here's another question, you all. When we ask you, a question that's similar to why should we select you for this role? If you can't answer the question, what makes you think I can?
How am I going to present you to the hiring managers in the best light? Not going to happen.
Exactly. You've got to be very clear about what your value add to the role is, right? You've got to do your work. I will often ask people a question like, hi, I don't know if our recruiter set you up. Do you know what role I play in the process? Again, I'm listening for people. I don't need you to blow smoke up my tail, but I am looking for you to understand some very basic information. I would never go to an interview and not figure out who the person I'm interviewing with. And look,
Just look them up.
I know we all live in a digital world. Stop showing up for your interviews late. Like, just stop. Just stop.
It's the easiest thing you could do in life is to show up on time, especially if it's remote. You just got to be there. You just got to do it. But here's the thing, and I say this all the time. I'm on candidate screening calls all day long. If you're a passive candidate and I'm reaching out to you, I have a little bit of understanding if you didn't do a ton of research, right? But if you applied inbound and we're having that conversation, I want to hear why you applied, what's interesting about it. And also on a passive candidate, I will ask them, I'll usually frame it like this. What was it about my outreach that got your attention? I kind of want to see what their interest was. Some of them will lean towards the company. The best one is, and I love this and I preach this, if something is interesting, even if you're not in the market, a 30-minute phone call is not going to take up too much of your time. What could happen from that? Nothing. At the very least, you can network with a recruiter, find out more information about a company, form that relationship for the future. And guess what? What if you really like the job and you're like, holy shit, this is a game changer right here. I'm actually interested in it. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of candidates that look great on paper that don't prepare for the call and they regret it afterwards when they find out that they're not selected. So put that time in. Clark, let's shoot it up to you for a minute here. I want to get your take on this.
I mean, there's a lot to cover. Reice and Rocki both speaking my language. I mean, from the Sales Navigator, which is absolutely my jam. I can talk about that a little bit. But first, I think just putting the effort, like Rocki said, just put some sort of effort that helps you stand apart. And that how to apply that even to what Reice talked about, right? Your LinkedIn profile. Is it just about you, right? Talk about your projects. Talk about what you've done, what you've accomplished, right? There's ways to phrase that without maybe looking like you're looking for another job, right? But just
Okay.
LinkedIn is your landing page. That's your sales page. Talk about what you care about, what you're working on, what you're proud of that you've done.
Mhm.
Like that's your opportunity. I know everyone's obsessed with keywords. That's fine, but that's your opportunity to tell your story about the impact and the value that you can bring to an organization that you're looking to do, both from a tactical piece, like Reice talked about, from kind of a strategy piece, right? That Rocki was mentioning. Like that's where you merge it. And the sales nav tips, there's a ton on that. You can do some automation, not just with Apollo, but you can look at some of the LinkedIn stuff as well. Like there's ways, if you're already looking, right, to do some of those things and to really accelerate your search. And you can build an intentional list, intentional messaging, outreach, right? Adam, what you said, I know you're a marketing recruiter, but do you know anyone that's in accounting, right? That accounting person, I know some great accounting and finance recruiters that have open roles. Like,
And sometimes
you know
we get
what
a referral fee. Sometimes we might be into some cross-pollination.
Yeah, exactly, right. And sometimes it's just introductions, right? And like
Frame it
that's just to pass it forward. So I think that putting some effort, learning how to stand out. If you don't know, go seek out resources. That is the beauty of the internet. You could Google,
Curiosity,
you could
folks.
YouTube, all that, like LinkedIn. Like, you know, I did a LinkedIn live the other day, completely breaking down Sales Navigator. Right, you could easily apply that for recruiting, for business development, but for a job, for a job search as well. But learn to put your best foot forward. It doesn't mean that you're inauthentic or lying, but just like, what do you do and where you're at? And if you're at a spot that you might be a little bit jumpy, or you had a gap, but you might not get the job you want right now, but you can change your situation very quickly within a couple of years. And so build out a vision or plan to do that, right? Maybe accept where you are now and then build out a plan to kind of get there, and kind of learn what it takes. And if you need those mentors, go search them out too.
Hot take, Reice, cover letters. Yay, nay, why?
Don't bother. Just being real. I don't think I've read a cover letter for anybody I've placed via the agency or when I've worked internal the entire time. At the end of the day, you're a good fit for the role or you're not. It just is what it is.
Rocki.
Yeah, I agree. But I will tell you there's power in a thank you note, though.
I agree. A heartfelt thank you note doesn't have to be long. Acknowledge a couple of quick things from the conversation that will set you apart. I don't expect it. I don't hold it against somebody if they don't, but it's value add. Clark, cover letters.
Yeah, not my jam either, but the thank you note that just appreciates the time and references back to conversation, and the callbacks are always important as well, because they show the comprehension, and that's an email's fine. I have terrible handwriting. I have to say that, so email's fine.
I've only got a couple of handwriting.
Don't send a handwritten note by the time it gets there.
It's weird.
It's 2030.
I also write like a child. So.
A lot of us work from home. If you send a thank you note to my house, I think you're a little bit creepy. So
what's in Apollo, really?
Yeah, but here's this is a great conversation, and this is fantastic. So much. But what I will say about cover letters, and the only way it works, if you need to explain a career pivot, a job, a gap, like listen. Just want to give you a heads up. I took the last 3 years off. I was taking care of an elderly relative, sick, whatever, yada, yada, travel the world. Just so they kind of know that, and they don't there's all kind of ways to do that in your resume. We'll get to in a little bit. While we're on that topic, let's talk about bad advice. There's so much crap going around LinkedIn right now, and I see it. Let's be fair. I actually see seasoned professionals giving a little bit of things that I kind of question, but advice is kind of subjective to an extent. But there's certain things that are like tried and true. Reice, well, what is the worst advice that you've seen floating around LinkedIn these days? And I'm gonna say mine today. I'm gonna write it down in case somebody says it.
Oof.
I'm gonna write it down.
I'll let someone else go first.
All right, we're thinking here. Who wants to go first? All right, while you're thinking, I'm gonna give mine. This is called the host doing his job to let people think right here. When people say take your shot, and if you feel like you're qualified, apply. This is a tough one right now because you're not setting yourself up for success. You're not setting yourself up to be a successful candidate right now. If you're looking at the job description, my general rule of thumb is if you see the must-haves and first of all, if it's a software or specific experience and you don't have it, don't bother. I'm serious at a certain level. If you have 75% of the overall qualifications, it's kind of like my rough guideline of take your shot, because what's going to happen is I'm going to pass you. As a recruiter, if I'm reviewing resumes and you don't have what I'm looking for in this market right now, you're done. You're going to get the automatic rejection. You're not going to stand out to me. And that's just the truth, speaking about a high volume situation right here. So manage your time, and you're also flooding the system. Let's be real here. Candidates have responsibility. I know I want to be empathetic there for people that are work, but don't just be hitting that easy apply for everything that might be doing it. that might be interesting to you. Read the job description. Really think about it. Be like, not only am I actually qualified for this role, but like, does it even look like something I want to do, or I just want to smash that apply button to say that I did some work in my job search today? So I don't like the advice of shoot your shot. I kind of go by the rule of 75%, give or take a little bit, if you're qualified on there. But if there's specific, like, we need someone with government clearance, with poly FBI clearance on there. If you don't have it, don't apply. Don't. Simple. You're just going to get rejected. All right, who wants to jump in with some bad advice? As we have about 9 minutes left. Rocki, hit me up.
I just want to go to the other side of it, and I have to say this. Men tend to apply for jobs when they're 60, 70% qualified, but women, the statistics show, don't apply until they're like 90+% qualified. Ladies, shoot your shot, right? Please.
Within reason, yeah.
Right, within reason. I'm with you all the way. Like, look, I have all respect for all fields, right? But there are certain things that are qualified, right? I can't have a doctor without a medical degree. Like that's
I play one on TV.
Right. Like I watched every episode of Grey's Anatomy, doesn't count, right? So yes, you want to shoot your shot. You want to be respectful though of the recruiter's time and the organization's time. But I have to say to women, you could afford to shoot the shot a little bit more often.
Well, to your point, Rocki, how many terribly written job descriptions are there that when actually get put to the test of the interview process, like half the things won't even apply, right? And so that's what also kind of pushed back a little bit. I applied one of the first jobs I got out of college, University of Florida football team. I got in their video department. A lot of applicants for that. I was the first in line. 5 months the job opened up. I had no idea. I just emailed a bunch of people that I wanted to get into pro or college football, and the qualifications said 2 years of experience. I had maybe 6 months, right? But that role, it was more of an internship graduate role. It didn't really need 2 years of experience, right? It needed more like kind of the hunger, the intangibles, all that piece.
Depends on the role.
Some roles, like a doctor, right? For fertility clinic doctor might need a little of experience, right? Some credentials and all that. We for sure understand, but I think knowing the role you're applying for, kind of the years of experience, and both, like what there's
a reason it says years of experience. There's a reason.
But on the all in all, I would say kind of more shoot your shot, and then to kind of not pivot a little bit, but I think I have to say this. It's not necessarily bad. It's misconstrued advice, I think, which is people talking about being vulnerable and all this other stuff out there. I'm not against that piece of it, but there's a difference between vulnerable and lashing out and being like a situation. I think when you're in a down and out, that reveals your character, right? When you're down. And so be mindful of how you present yourself. If you kind of present yourself with that kind of, yep, I'm in a tough spot. Here's what I'm going to do about it. I'm going after it. Like, I appreciate everyone's support. Like, I'm going to make it happen versus blaming the world.
Oh yeah.
Because no one really owes us anything or owes you anything, right? But it kind of is how we show up. And there is power in that vulnerability, but there is a kind of way to do it.
Vulnerability is
strength.
Yeah, I mean, I put a post out earlier last week, just talking about how my business took a huge hit last year and what I'm doing to bounce back from that and resilience and all that stuff. And I was just keeping it real, but I wasn't like, oh, woe is me. No, because also you got to keep the optics there. Reice, I've given you enough time. What is the bad advice?
Okay. All right. It's funny. As soon as you said shoot your shot, I was like, damn it. That was the one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say probably salary negotiation.
Let's talk shop around that. Yeah.
Oftentimes the advice is to be very cards close to your chest and kind of play the game of salary chicken in order to get them to say your range first. Or to get the company to say their range first. And, laws aside in terms of posting salary ranges on jobs, and plenty of companies are circumventing that by posting ridiculous ranges like 100 to 400K or something like that.
0 to 19999.
Benefits you to keep your cards close to your chest when it comes to sharing what your salary expectations are. And I know what everyone's going to say. It's because, well, what if I say I'm looking for 140 and the range is 130 to 160?
Right.
That's fine. That's fine. As a recruiter, I understand roughly what your a potential, earnings power is given your level of experience and expertise. If I'm looking at a role that's 130 to 160K and you say you're looking at 140, that's fine. I might be talking to someone who's looking for 160K, and you two presumably are going to have 2 different levels of experience.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a 140K candidate and you say, oh, well, it goes up to 160, so that's what I want. Okay, fine. You're probably, if you stand a much higher chance then of getting DQ'd based on someone who has more experience that's looking for the same salary. So I will, I am very upfront with candidates. I'll tell them what the range is on the first call and ask them, where they fall into that. And, sometimes if people do play the cards close to the chest, I honestly get annoyed because I don't want to put you and even refuse to share what your dollar is. I get annoyed because now I don't even want to put you into process.
I'm also not moving you forward. I'm also not even continuing this conversation because I'm always having that in the first call.
Well, right. Well, and I don't want to. And if you're not in the range and you're not going to discuss it, I don't want to risk wasting my hiring manager's time. I don't want to waste my recruiting or my interviewing team's time just to get all the way to the end of the process and you for you to be like, oh, well, I actually need 15K more. Like that.
And don't try to pull that crap with us either, right? Like, and like, there's a reason. There's some wiggle room there too, where you're like, listen, I told you my range at the beginning, and I like when candidates say, it's like, here's my range, but I want to hear more. I want to interview and go through the process, and then they get to the end, and they're like, two ways about this. Hey, listen, this role is a lot more complex and with more responsibilities. I think this is more of a 200K role than a 175 role versus at the end, like, yeah, I told you 150, but no, 200K is my number. Like, come on, bro. Like that's not gonna fly at all. We have a couple minutes left here. Rocki, what's some bad advice that you've seen? Did I ask you already?
Yeah, we did. I did. But look, I think we got some things that are going on, and I just think I want to go back to
wherever you want to go.
What was sitting in my mind.
Dealer's choice.
I like that. We talked about this earlier. As you're leaving roles, as you don't get jobs or whatever, don't burn your bridges. Like, Kaz, I saw the video with you and Gary bringing you on stage and etc. And it was such a powerful lesson. Like, look,
how you treat somebody on the way out is sometimes more important than on the way in.
Well, and not only that, but be respectful of time and relationships. Like, you're shooting your shot, you're reaching out to us, and then what irks me are the people who are like, hey, Rocki, do you know about a job? And then 8 hours later, they're like, you haven't answered my email. And then 8 hours later, they're like, why haven't you answered my LinkedIn request? I don't even know who you are. And by the way, I do have a job and I'm working it. And I'm sorry I'm not sitting there immediately responding to LinkedIn messages. And yes, I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek there. But look at things instead of this short-term interaction. Build a relationship with people and be respectful of other people's time. I've been in a situation where I went through the whole interview process, literally with this company, 7 interviews, back and forth in my car interviews, didn't get the job, thanked everybody, walked away. 3 months later, that company called me, said, can I take you to dinner? And I got an offer and worked for that company for a couple of years. Yep. You don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to happen if you're snarky, not respectful of people's time, and just piss people off.
So I want to, Clark, go for it.
I was just quickly, because I love that. Give people the benefit of the doubt or grace, or follow up with grace, and assume that they're busy. Put yourself in their shoes. And it's just I'm crazy busy trying to run 2 businesses, all that stuff. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not perfect. I love when someone follows up with me. Someone did it last night. After 10 days, I was like, oh, crap. I meant to send the introduction email. And I was like, thank you for being kind about it. I sent the email. I was like, thank you. On my way. It's a lot, right? I got a 7-month-old. He's not sleeping at all and all that stuff. I just the inbox gets crazy. Just a graceful reminder is all you need, and just get in the habit of doing that over and over. It stacks up.
Exactly, guys. So I want to wrap it up here. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody in the audience. Thank you for hanging with us for the last hour, 5 minutes, however long you gave us. There's been a wealth of information here. If you weren't able to catch this live, don't worry. This lives on YouTube. It lives on LinkedIn, anywhere. It's also going to be coming out on the podcast, official audio and video, out in a few weeks. You could catch it all there. We're going to clip it up. It's awesome. I want to go around the horn and thank my guests. And it's plug time. So tell everyone where they could find you, where they could learn more. Ladies first, Rocki Howard.
Yeah, look, come check out Diversiology. We're a subscription-based platform that helps small to mid-sized businesses build more equitable and high-performing cultures. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Love it. Reice.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, feel free to shoot me a connection request, reach out. You can also go to mindhire.ai, which is the website. Currently is something that yours truly slapped together, but we're launching the new and updated site should be tomorrow or Monday. So I'm excited for that. And if you need to hire AI and machine learning talent, I'm your guy.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. And last but not least, Mr. Clark Willcox.
Well, you can find me. I just put my last name on the name. I realized I didn't do that before. It's Willcox with 2 L's. You can find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me. Message me there. digitalrecruiter.io. Would love to connect and kind of see what you got going on.
Well, awesome, everybody. I want to thank everybody who was joining us for today's podcast live, the Hiring Roundtable. We're going to be back. We're going to do this again. I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how, but we're going to do it. Remember, folks, you can find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all of these social media channels. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
See you.